The CSS checklist covers important features that can help you build more elegant and responsive React components. An analogy I like to use is to think of a React component as a house and you as its builder. The CSS features covered in this video are the tools that will help you build a beautiful house. Welcome to the Helpful Coder channel, and let's dive right into the essential checklist. The first feature you should know is grids. They consist of rows and columns and help you vertically and horizontally position items. The space between rows and columns can be specified. In modern websites, you would find them being used to set up grid systems and build large modules. Items placed within a grid are called grid items and can span multiple rows and/or columns. A helpful way to understand grids is from the lens of a grid system, which is a fundamental design pattern upon which websites are built. It is responsive, which means it adjusts based on the width of the browser window. The most common layout of a grid system that I have seen is 2 columns for a mobile browser, 4 columns for a tablet browser, and 12 columns for anything larger, like a laptop or desktop. We do not specify the number of rows, as a grid automatically scales the number of rows based on how much content is within it. Think of it as having no maximum height. Items in the grid system position themselves along particular columns, with each usually spanning multiple columns. The most important CSS property for a grid system is grid template columns. It sets the number of columns on the grid as well as the widths. This example sets our grid to have 4 columns of equal width. fr is a fractional unit and represents a part of the empty space. Repeat is a function that helps us write a pattern in a compact way. Repeat for 1fr is the same thing as writing 1fr 4 times. This tells our grid that we want to split all the available space into 4 columns of equal width. But this property allows for a lot more. For example, we can also specify how wide we want a column to be by declaring its width, or even combine the two, having some columns be a fixed width and the other scale according to the available space. The next most important CSS properties are grid column and grid row, which are applied to the grid items and help them control their position on the grid. Grids also offer many more cool features, one of them being able to name a grid area. I only see the use of grids increase in the future, and is the reason they are the first item on this checklist. The second essential CSS feature is Flex. Learning how Flex works and how to properly use it has helped me more than every other thing in this video. You might have used this to center a div, but it is so much more than that. It is a flexible container used to arrange and align items within it, as well as distribute the space between items. It has a main axis called the flex direction. This can be horizontal, called row, or vertical, called column. This decides the flow of the items within it. It also has a cross axis, which runs perpendicular to the flex direction. This helps control the alignment of the items relative to each other. By default, all items are put in one line, but we can also set our flex items to wrap if a line overflows. The most important CSS property for flex is justify content. This controls the arrangement of items along the main axis. By default, they align from the start, but other commonly used options are space between, which maximizes the space between items, and center, which places the items in the middle. Similar to justify content, we can also control the alignment of items along the cross axis using the CSS property align items. Common values here are flex start, which positions them at the start of the main axis, flex end, which positions them at the end of the main axis, and center, which centers them. I use flex in most components I build and is an invaluable asset to me. If there is one thing you take away from this video, it should be that you should learn to use flex. Time for the third item on the checklist, media queries, specifically when they're combined with min width. They allow us to apply styles to our components based on the width of the user's device, giving us the ability to have the same components look different on a mobile browser and compared to them on a desktop browser. Media queries are important as nowadays users visit websites from different devices. From analytics data of websites that I have built, mobile browsers are the most common, then laptops and desktops, and then finally tablets. This means that components must be responsive, and they need to look and function great regardless of what device the user is on. Let's look at this example. Here we have a flex div that displays items in a column. If we want to display the items in a row on desktop, we can add a media query with a min width of 360 pixels, setting the flex div to display the items in a row. These styles will only be applied to browsers with a width of 360 pixels or higher. I chose this number as most mobile browsers are less wide than that. Now if a user views a component on a browser that is wider than 360 pixels, such as a laptop, they will see the items in a row, but mobile users will continue to see the items in a column. A tip with working with min width media queries is to have standardized breakpoints for all your components. Breakpoints are pixel values at which our components change style to suit a different device. In this example, widths between 360 pixels and 900 pixels are considered tablet, widths between 900 and 1440 pixels are considered laptop, and all widths wider than 1440 pixels are considered desktop. Not mentioned here is mobile, which is a default and accounts for all widths under 360 pixels. I recommend standardizing these and saving them as variables, and then using these variables for all the components that you build. Learning to use media queries is a non-negotiable and something I strongly recommend you get comfortable with. The fourth and final item on the essential CSS checklist is the endChild pseudo class. This feature allows you to add styles on children items based on their position. For example, endChild1 will select the first child, endChild2 will select the second child, and endChildOdd will select all the odd children. We can push this even further using its functional notation. Here A is the step size. Using this in an example, 3n will select all children that have their position as a multiple of 3, meaning it will select the third child, sixth child, ninth child, and so on. B is the integer offset. Setting this as 1 in the previous example, will select the fourth child, seventh child, 10th child, and so on. And this can be pushed even further when combined with other selectors. Most components I work on have nesting, and the endChild pseudo class gives me the ability to seamlessly apply styles based on the position of the children. It is the last item on my checklist, and though it is not as well known as the other features on the checklist, it can truly improve the way you add CSS styles. I hope you have found this video helpful and are leaving with information and knowledge that will help you become a better React developer. If you want to help me, you can do so by liking and subscribing. I am the Helpful Coder, and thank you so much for watching this video.